Good evening. This is Greg Beyer, and we're going to be talking about the next step, another possible step we use in asset protection planning, and that's using the entity called an LLC, or a limited liability company. This is not a limited liability corporation, but it is something that is fairly new to the state of California. So back in 1997, California didn't have any LLC rules, and so we weren't able to do them here. All the other states had great LLC rules, and when they finally said in 97 that they were going to let us have them in California too, we were all excited. We were looking forward to the wonderful things we were going to be able to do with this wonderful tool. Well, they came out and they created the rules of how we're going to use them in California, and they didn't turn out as well as we hoped. So the deal is, in 49 states, we love LLCs. We use them all the time. They're very beneficial for all kinds of reasons, which we're going to talk about in a minute. In California, we're not as enthusiastic. So the deal is that we found that in California, if you earn too much in gross revenues, there's what we call a gross revenues tax. So you pay tax even if there's not even any profit in the business. They have what is called a rule that if you are registered with any department in the state of California, you're unable to use an LLC. Thus, I'm unable to use an LLC as an attorney. Okay, my doctor and my dentist can't use LLCs because they are licensed with the medical boards. Contractors can't use them. Dry cleaners can't use them. Contractors can't use them. And so this is just, they limited who's able to use this type of an entity. Why? Nobody can figure it out, but this seems to be what the rule is in California. So as we're talking about LLCs today, most of the time we're going to be talking about LLCs in other jurisdictions other than California. Now, if you're just making cupcakes and you want to sell them online and you're going to get about $60,000 a year, then an LLC is a great entity for you. But if you're going to be serious about what you're really doing, it may not be the one we want to use if it's a California business. Now, in other jurisdictions, we're going to show you the fun things we can do with LLCs. Now, we have several types of LLCs. First of all, we classify them according to who's in charge. So the LLCs, we can either have what's called a member managed LLC, and a member managed just means everybody who's a member, everybody who owns a piece of the LLC has a voice, a vote in what's going on. It's like having a board of directors. Then they're the ones making all the decisions, and you're either going to have it unanimous, or you're going to have a majority rules depending on how the documents are written. The other way to do it is called a member managed LLC. And member managed means that everybody gets together and they choose one person to be in charge, like being the president of a corporation or something of that sort. And so the deal is we can work with either one of these, and they both work well depending on how you want the structure to go. The second way that we classify the LLCs is by whether they are going to be a single person LLC, or if they're going to have multiple member LLCs. Now, the single member LLC has a little bit of an issue, and that is there can be a claim that this is merely an alter ego for the person that owns the LLC. And an alter ego just means that the courts are going to treat it as if it's really you, even though it's a business. And so you don't get the liability protection as much. You don't get as much of the other benefits that a business would be able to give to you. If you have two or more members, then we're going to not have that alter ego possibility. And so it's going to work a lot better. So in reality, even though legally you can have a single member LLC, most of us like to go for the multiple member LLCs. So what does an LLC do? An LLC works very similar to what the California FLP, Family Limited Partnership, does here in California. And we talked about that a few times ago, and so you might want to look at that, but let me kind of refresh some of those things. So with the LLC, we're able to go ahead and transfer assets that we want to protect into the LLC. Our home, our business building, our investment account, things that you would not want anybody to be able to touch in case they were to come and sue you. And so by putting them in here, now what happens if somebody comes to sue, they will come and to first of all, they'll go to yourself personally or to your trust and see if there's anything there that's worthwhile. Well, if we've transferred everything of value, the properties, the investment accounts, the things that you want to protect into the LLC, there's going to be nothing that you own personally that they can come after that they're going to want to do. So they're going to kind of abandon that option and come to the next, and that is go after your LLC interest. Now, an LLC interest is similar to owning stock in a corporation. It's your piece of the business. And so what happens is when they come to the court to get permission to come and take your LLC interest, the court is going to tell them that that's not one of the things that is available to them. Because with an LLC, similar to the FLP in California, there is either one or two remedies to be able to take care of, to go after an LLC interest. Everyone has the first remedy, and that is a charging order. The charging order just says that the creditor is able to act as if they owned the LLC interest, and thus if any profits are paid out, that creditor will receive the profits. Well, what we do in this case, similar to what we did in the FLP, we go ahead and we make sure that the managing member or the members together as a group decide no distributions will be made. By doing that, what happens is at the end of the year, all the members will get a K1 for their share of the profits. The K1 going to the member that has this creditor that's coming to try to take their assets, that member's K1 goes to the creditor, and they will end up having to pay taxes on their share of the profits, even though we gave them no profits. So we like the charging order. We're going to get into this more as we get into more sophisticated working, but realize the charging order is what makes the FLP in California and the LLCs in other states work so well. In some states, there is a second remedy that is there, and that's the remedy of foreclosure. And that is basically saying that if a creditor is able to receive or collect or attach enough of the LLC interest, then they can go ahead and foreclose the whole thing, close it down, so all the distributions would be made out to the members, and thus the creditor would be able to receive that member's portion of the assets in the LLC. The way we draft the documents, it's basically impossible for that to happen, because we're going to go ahead and make sure that the amount of interest that the creditor would have to get control over is not going to happen under any logical sense of the word. So that's kind of one of the things that we use with an LLC. Now, we use the LLC also in another manner. As I mentioned when we were talking about FLPs, Family Limited Partnerships in California, because there has to be two partners, there's a limited partner that has limited liability, and there is a general partner who has general liability. Why does the general partner have general liability? Because they make decisions. They're the ones deciding whether there's going to be any distributions made. They're going to be the ones that are working the way it's supposed to be working. And so what happens is that the general partner, because they're making decisions, there is liability there. Because of the liability, we want to make sure that you are not the general partner, because if you're the general partner, that liability comes and falls directly on you. So what we do is we create an LLC in Wyoming, and this is a management LLC. It makes the decisions that could bring liability, and thus any creditor, their only option, since they don't want to go after your trust because there's nothing in there that have any value, they can't go after your LLC interest because it's not allowed by law. All they can do in California, if you have this FLP, they're going to go ahead and have to go after the general partner, and that is the Wyoming LLC. So why Wyoming? Well, we like Wyoming. There's a lot of good places to create LLCs, but we like Wyoming because, number one, it's very inexpensive to be able to create and maintain an LLC in Wyoming. Number two is Wyoming has no business taxes. And so it is, we don't have to worry about the tax situation. Number 3, Wyoming's far away from most people because nobody wants to go to Wyoming. It's too cold. So the deal is that they're going to have to get an attorney that's going to be willing to actually bring in a suit in another state. And as much as I hate to say it, most attorneys are not going to take the time to do that. Number 4 is Wyoming has the ability to basically favor either people or the business, and they are very business friendly. So when there are lawsuits in Wyoming, most of the time they're going to be found in favor of the business rather than the individual, where some of us in other states, it seems like the individual will win every time. So by doing this, we basically put this entity out there to be the dog toy, let's say, for the creditor to come and chew on and rip at and snarl at, because they can't get at anything else. And we make sure that this LLC has very few assets, and thus, because there's few assets, even if they get through and they get a judgment, there's not much that we will lose. So that's another use for the LLC. So we love LLCs, 49 states, not as excited about LLCs in California, although we use them in some cases, but that's one more possible use of an entity in our asset protection structure. So we're going to come and show you some more things soon, so make sure you come back again and we'll show you some other options of what we can do.